everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tonight, I have two special guests. I have been on their show several times, but they have never been on mine. So, KEATON and RUSS from Do Dissidence. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, fellas.
Thanks for having
No
us. Pleasure
problem.
to see you.
Thanks for having us on.
Of course. And for those tuning in for the first time, I am 85% blind. So I have my comrade Matt on the back end. He's going to be helping with the showing of things, and he may pop in to read something here and there. So,
Hello.
because as the song says, I can't do it on my own. But anyway, what have you guys been up to? It's been a minute.
More of the same, I guess. More of the same, covering all kinds of different things. Russell's been doing some on the ground stuff, and we're doing
On
4
the
shows a week.
ground.
Yeah. Russell's been
On the
going out there.
ground.
Yes, indeed.
Me and Jordan.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And me. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. And you've been filling in for Jimmy too, haven't you? Here and there.
Yeah. Quite a lot over the last few months.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys think about like everything that's going on in Palestine? Are you guys finding it difficult to pick only an hour worth of shit each week
Yes.
to cover?
Yes.
Because it's driving me
Absolutely.
fucking mad.
Yeah. There's way more to cover than we
Yeah.
could possibly get to. Like we would need to have a Ryan and Emily to cover everything. We can't. We can't do it.
Yeah, but by
Yeah.
far the most challenging part of doing the show is picking which segments
Oh my
we're
God,
going to
yeah.
do. We spend way more time parsing through dozens of stories to whittle it down to 6 or 7 a day.
Oh, I know.
So that's by far the biggest challenge. And then what's especially kind of been frustrating this past, month or so, really ever since the Iran-Israel airstrike swap, there's been a complete reset in terms of the media's attitude towards Israel. Like for a couple weeks there, before that airstrike exchange, it looked like the media was ready to turn on Israel and sacrifice Netanyahu and, basically concede at least a PR defeats for Israel and for the Zionist project. And then when it looked like shit might get real with Iran, it's like they reset and all of a sudden we were back to litigating campus protests. What was one of the first things we litigated after October 7th? Anti-Semitism on the campuses. And then that went away because it looked ridiculous when you looked at all of the war crimes that were being done in not only Gaza, but the West Bank as well, right? I mean, they were losing on multiple fronts. And then this Iran airstrike happened. And what happened? We were back to calling the Columbia kids, rabid anti-Semites. So that's been frustrating this last month. And it has made it more challenging to cover because I feel like a lot of us in this space are always very conscious about like repetition. We don't want to do the same story over and over again. We don't want to say the same thing every show. If we can avoid doing that, we will. But it really seems like, as I put it, after Iran hit the Iron Dome, it was like time had folded in on itself and we were back in November of last year. So that's been really frustrating this past month or so, as we really feel like we're back to the starting point. But we have no choice but to fight that battle again because we won it once and we will win it again. We are winning it again. But that has been a real sort of, I hesitate to call it a pain in the ass because that is minor suffering compared to the suffering of the world, but it's been a pain in the ass for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys, what do you think about being a part of independent media in a time like this when there are, when there's MSM and you see the cancer it is? Like, Russ, what are you proud to be in independent media? Do you carry a sense of responsibility? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, there's no place I think I'd rather be right now. We are in a position to try to make a difference and to try to build something from where we are. We are truly in a moment and a world that has never existed before. You know, in the 90s, people thought it was the end of history, right? Yeah, the song "Right Here, Right Now," but naturally, history was not going to end so gently. It feels like now is actually the moment where the world is waking up from history. But it is not going to be to these soothing strains of triumphant pop. It is going to be a desperate struggle between this old world of colonization and exploitation and this more equitable world that is trying to be born. And that
Yeah.
old world is not going to go gently, if at all. And we are the journalists of this moment covering this for the people who are trying to bring that world into being. I truly believe this is the beginning of a big, big moment in history. These little independent shows, this is just the start of what I believe will spiral into a much bigger cultural movement.
I agree. Matt, do you want to show the first thing from this week's news? Oh, today, I was bugging my husband for the past few months, that for my birthday I wanted to go play with baby goats, and today it happened. Yay!
So they let you
Um,
just hold them and like nuzzle them like that? Oh
oh
yeah, look at how
yes,
friendly.
they were. Oh my
As
God,
long
they
as you're
were
not wearing a
so cute.
pentagram.
Yeah, right.
True, true. Yes, no blood, no nothing like that,
Yeah.
but oh, they were so cute. Yeah,
I
it
guess
was.
as people who like goats go, you're pretty benign. You
Yes.
know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people who have a thing for goats are probably more threatening to the goat. You
I
know?
would
Yeah, I mean, I'm
imagine.
definitely not into bestiality or anything
That's
like
what I mean.
that.
That's what I mean.
So,
So they're probably very relieved when like a normal
yes,
person
Nah,
shows
yes.
up
man. I was
and they just
walking
want to pet
through
them.
I was walking through a park in Washington Heights, and somebody did some Santeria shit out there, man. There was a plate with a goat head with organs around it. It
Damn.
had
That's what I
just
mean.
been done the night before. It was still fresh.
That's what I mean. When a nice
Wow,
lady
you're
like you
really
shows up, they're
talking
like, oh,
about
thank God.
That's
Thank
what I'm
God. A
saying.
nice one.
goat
Yeah.
heads when I'm
Yeah.
showing what I did a couple hours ago.
Well,
Poor
if you didn't think you were gonna get that, you haven't watched our show.
Yeah. Right.
goat. Yes, so that was my birthday treat, and then I went to dinner, so that was good. That was a fun day. So now we are kicking off with one of the protests.
Oh wow, it's like a hero dog. That's like the Rin Tin Tin of the protests.
Yeah.
That's great.
That dog was like a cab
That
motherfuckers.
that is a based dog.
It is, right? Oh my gosh, I would love to see that in real life. That's so wonderful. Animals know, don't you guys think? Like animals know.
That's a
They
that's a
really do.
that's a feel good story.
It
Yes.
is. It really is. Matt, what is next? Oh yes. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but it actually was good. So, yeah, if you want to play that, Matt.
It breaks my heart to see that same thing happening in our country with the Jewish students
Oh, it's
who
Australian.
are mistreated on university campuses. To see that what is happening on our streets in Australia with the Palestinian protest marches, I think it's just disgusting. It's un-Australian. This is an absolutely stunt by the Greens, and I get so annoyed to call it out for what it is, and the Labor Party for their pathetic attempt and to allow the Palestinians onto the UN Convention is appalling.
I would either like you to remove the scarf, it's not a debate, remove the scarf, or to leave the chamber.
Yes. So
yeah, apparently Australia has quite a few kooks. We did a story about that on Jimmy's show.
Australia is the Florida of the world. Like, it has crazy shit happen. Really crazy shit. But that was so good to see, you see these, remove this to any Palestinian supporters. And finally they were like, nope, remove that. I thought that was kind of poetic justice. I mean, she's a total, asshole, but that was nice. That was also a feel-good story.
Well, it's incredible. I mean, you're seeing all these reactions now. It's like they all got the same script since the ICC issued the warrant for Netanyahu and I believe Yoav Gallant as well, and I think one other, or maybe it was just those two. But we saw like Dean Phillips, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Joe Biden himself issued a statement. Adam Schiff, same thing. They're all saying, well, the ICC making a moral equivalency between Netanyahu and Hamas is outrageous. It's all the same. It's all the same exact.
Well, yeah,
sentiment.
Netanyahu. Oh, are we on YouTube?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm not going to say that.
All right. But yeah, I mean, the math is. I know where he's going there. Do the math.
Yeah.
Right?
You knew where I was going.
Yeah, exactly. And so, there's just a lot of cope going on, not only here in the U.S., but apparently around the world as well. And like I said, this is a battle that has to be fought all over again for God knows what reason. It's one that we already won, and now we have to fight it a second time, where we have to just re-defeat all of these arguments. But the smearing of the campus protesters is how this got started, back in October. That was the line.
Yeah. Matt, I think we have an article on that, what Keaton was just referring to.
On the ICC, you mean?
Yeah. They were talking about like today. Warrants.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one? From AP News, war crimes prosecutor seeks arrest of Israeli and Hamas leaders, including Netanyahu. There's a video. Yes. Play this.
My office submits that there are reasonable grounds to believe that these three Hamas leaders are criminally responsible for the killing of Israeli civilians in attacks perpetrated by Hamas and other armed groups on the 7th of October 2023, the taking of hostages, and the other crimes alleged in our applications. I can also confirm today that I have reasonable grounds to believe, on the basis of evidence collected and examined by my office, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes committed on the territory of the State of Palestine from at least the 8th of October 2023. The crimes include starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, willfully causing great suffering, serious injury to body or health or cruel treatment, willful killing or murder, and intentionally directing attacks against a civilian population, as well as crimes against humanity of extermination and or murder.
מדינת ישראל יצאה למלחמה הצודקת ביותר לאחר טבח שביצע ארגון הטרור חמאס באזרחיה. מדינת ישראל נלחמת באופן המוסרי ביותר בהיסטוריה תוך הקפדה על מדינת ישראל מערכת משפט עצמאית. הצבת מנהיגי מדינה שיצאה לקרב הגנה על אזרחיה באותה שורה עם טרוריסטים צמאי דם היא עיוורון מוסרי ופגיעה בחובתה ויכולתה להגן על אזרחיה. קבלת עמדת התובע תפגע ביכולתה של כל מדינה להגן על אזרחיה, ותהווה פשע היסטורי שלא יימחק.
Well, yeah, it's going to make
My
it
office
very hard
submits.
to protect your citizens through genocidal collective punishment.
Yeah,
It'll make it hard in that sense. Wow.
right.
Wow.
And also, I see like Bernard, sharing this. Oh, yes, this is right. Dude, if these people are culpable, so is your friend Biden. Like,
Right.
if we're going to hold Netanyahu accountable, shouldn't we maybe hold the person who's giving them the money and weapons to do the international war crimes?
Well,
Like,
that's why they're making such noise about it, because if they're war criminals, what does that say about them? You have a lot of people who go down with Israel in terms of their reputations, in terms of their professional prospects, their ability to circulate in polite society. If Israel is acknowledged as the genocidal apartheid ethno-state that it is, there are a lot of very powerful people that can't show their faces in public again anymore. So that's what a lot of this is about. Of course, Biden has to say it's outrageous, because if it's not, what does that say about what we're doing? What does that say about our policy?
Exactly. Right. And the idea, to make a moral equivalency. They use the word moral to describe this ICC ruling, which is very telling, because this is not a moral ruling. This is a legal ruling. Right. That's why they had to issue the warrants for the Hamas leaders as well, because they had to acknowledge war crimes, because to the extent that civilians were targeted on either side, that constitutes a war crime. So Hamas has the right to armed resistance against an occupying army under international law, which means the IDF soldiers that were killed on October 7th were fair game according to international law. Now, the civilians were not fair game, and acts of resistance, though legal, are subject to the same rules of war as any other act of war. So the ICC made the legal ruling that they have to hold Hamas to account for its civilian deaths at its hands, because that constitutes a war crime under international law. And they have to do the same to Netanyahu. So they were not making a moral equivalency. They were issuing a legal ruling. If you're doing a moral, if morality weighs into this, as we said on October 7th, and we don't celebrate or glorify violence against anybody, but would you hold Nat Turner morally responsible for the innocent white people who he killed when he lashed out the only way he knew how to? You can mourn the deaths of the children who were killed in that slave uprising. We can mourn those deaths, but who is morally responsible for those deaths? Is it Nat Turner, a man who was born a slave and faced with the choice to either rot to death in bondage or to lash out and try desperately to break free? The moral responsibility for the deaths of those white children that he killed lay at the feet of the masters who brutalized Nat Turner from the day he was born. So if we're going to get into morality, we can go there. The ICC is not dealing in morality. They're making a legal ruling. They're not making a moral equivalency about anything. They are saying quite simply and quite plainly the obvious truth, which is that Israel is guilty of multiple war crimes, as he explained in that video.
Absolutely. This is conjecture, but Russ, can you see this actually happening, that Netanyahu would be penalized in any kind of way?
You know what? Things seem impossible until they seem inevitable. So I'm not going to say that can't happen, because I think the world is going through a lot of changes. It's going through a lot of changes. We're doing a story tomorrow about the electronic guillotine, so-called electronic guillotine, where all of these people, most of them young people who are, really using TikTok and Instagram, are on mass unsubscribing from celebrities, not only for being Zionists, simply for trying to be silent, for not speaking out in the face of a genocide.
Right.
Apparently, Kim Kardashian lost 3 million subscribers in a matter of days. So this is the moment we're facing. And, as we saw, to make a little leap in connecting something, as we saw with Wall Street bets, these very online young people are pretty well equipped to figure out how the system is rigged and to attack it based on its own premises. It didn't take them long to put together how you would attack Wall Street. Now, of course, in the end, the empire struck back. But I would consider that an early example of kind of proof of concept, that once they really get organized and fight back in this electronic medium, in the end, they understand this medium better than its creators do.
That's a really good point. Matt, what do we have next?
Oh, this guy.
I can't.
I don't believe that there's a genocide going on, and I don't think Israel's intention is genocide. I don't believe there's any evidence of genocide. There is genocide going on in the Mideast, but it's a genocide of Jews and it's a genocide of Christians, and nobody's complaining about it for some reason. And there are much worse wars than what's happening in Gaza right now. But for some reason, people don't want to complain unless it's Jews who can be blamed. The idea of saying that there's a genocide going on in Israel because people die in war, and that in every war that's going on in the world today, there are civilians dying, and the average death rate, civilian to combatant death rate, according to the United Nations and to the Institute for the Study of Urban Warfare at West Point, is about 9 to 1. But in Gaza, it's about 1 to 1. So
That's
they've
a lie.
achieved a better,
That's a lie.
in the most challenging
This guy
conditions.
just
The Israeli
fucking
government has,
just
the IDF
does not give a
has protected
shit.
civilians better than any army in history. John Spencer said it has done more to protect civilians under more difficult circumstances than any army in history.
What?
That's what my friend Jeffrey told me, and I'm sticking to that story because I don't know who wound up with those tapes.
Right, exactly.
And yeah, Epstein hung himself, you dumbass.
Yeah.
No, that is just this is, and hey man, me and Keaton, we're gonna take a little victory lap on your show, because when everyone was still flirting with RFK, we cracked open his book and we said, this fucking guy's full of shit. And we took some heat for it, and step by step, inch by inch, he revealed himself.
But when he talked about I might be running, I'm like, you guys, okay. And I was just like, and the attacks. And now I'm like, now people are like,
because this is
right.
This comes up a lot on the show. I talk a lot about this. There's a slavish instinct in people where we are hierarchical primates, and people want to follow a leader. And when they think they have a leader they can follow, they'll viciously defend that impulse, because they're just being monkeys, man. They're just being monkeys. Oh, look at the big monkey. I got to follow the big monkey. Don't say anything bad about the big monkey. I'm following the big monkey. They don't want to hear that. But RFK pushed it so far, they all kind of shut up now.
It's the same as shit libs, though. If you're diehard defend Biden no matter what he does, no matter what he says, and you're also doing it for RFK Jr., what the fuck's the difference? You're still not holding them accountable.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the presidential race, I think early on a lot of people were looking to back a candidate. They felt like, we can't go into a cycle without a candidate to back.
Yep. Yeah.
And so they
Gotta have a
saw
horse
in
in the
RFK,
race.
someone who just wasn't there. It was pretty obvious to me. I mean, Look, I didn't know as much about the Israel-Palestine issue as I do now post-October 7th, but I knew enough to know pre-October 7th that if he was this much of a hardliner on this issue, he was not to be trusted. Because I knew that this issue had tentacles into all other issues, as we're learning now. First and foremost, aside from the issue itself, obviously, so secondarily, I might say, free speech. RFK's out there, last summer, last spring, suing Google for suppressing him, and they probably did suppress him, so good on him for doing that, but he's out there promoting himself as this free speech champion. Meanwhile, he's this ultra Zionist, and I knew enough then to know that those two things do not jive, because any criticism of Israel in any meaningful way at any meaningful moment will be censored. And if he is as joined at the hip with the likes of Rabbi Shmuley, he's going to be right there for it. Have we heard a word out of this guy in defense of the right of students to protest on campus? Not a fucking word. He'll go after Google when they come after him, but he doesn't believe in free speech any more than any of these other posers say they believed in free speech until this happened. Yeah, exactly. So that's part of how I was able to kind of sniff him out from the outset, because I knew, okay, if you're pro-Israel, you're not a serious anti-war candidate, because he was talking about, he made a lot of anti-war noises with regards to Russia, Ukraine, and you're not really a free speech candidate either if you're this hardcore, Zionist.
Mm-hmm. Well, he has CIA on his campaign team, and people are like, well, one of us is his stepdaughter. I don't give a flying fuck who it is. Yeah. It's CIA, and it's on his campaign team. Like, no, sorry, that's not okay.
It's been a while since we've heard anyone defend RFK. That's over. I mean, he has his people, but we don't hear from him anymore. There's not many.
Have you guys officially endorsed anyone?
No.
I was gonna go with Dave Chappelle, but his Zionism, his purported Zionism that's a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, I will not. I mean, I think I could speak for both of us when I say, we're not really particularly excited about anybody in this race, to the point where I don't feel it's worth endorsing a candidate, because I don't feel it's really necessary to sort of drive a wedge through the coalition in that way. Right. Like, if I vote for president, and that's a big if, I probably won't. But if I do, I can't imagine voting for anyone except Jill Stein at this point. But if someone wants to go and vote for Cornel West, I mean, what am I going to argue with them? Like, is it worth fighting with someone over that? Is it worth getting so into it with someone over that I walk away angry at the person? Like, no. Like, it's not a decision of enough consequence to be worth digging in on. So that's how I feel. So if we endorse a candidate, now we open ourselves up to having to debate people who support other candidates, and those are debates that I find to be a total waste of time, especially at a moment like this where the activists are winning. Not only on this Israel-Palestine issue have we moved the needle, the UK court just gave Julian Assange a huge win this morning. And that is
today's actually a good news day.
It is a good news day, and that is thanks in no small part to the activists who have been out on the streets for years. Russell went to London to cover the Day X hearing, so this ruling was an extension of that Day X hearing, and they ended up winning.
I hear that's actually why they ruled this way.
Yeah, because Russell was there. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say it was because you guys were coming on my show.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I thought exactly. That was
word got out. But no, I mean, look, if there were no presence there that day, would this have gone the way it did? I don't think so. Like this stuff.
There were a lot of people out there, man.
There were a lot of people out there who have been really applying pressure, and it seems to be working. And so, like, if amongst that crowd, a third of the people are going to vote for Jill Stein, a third of the people are going to vote for Cornell, a third, and whatever, Biden and RFK and Trump split the rest, like, is it worth fucking arguing about? No, who cares? I don't care who wins the presidency at this point. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I always thought, when push came to shove, Trump was the lesser evil to Biden just because he's this wild card. There's this randomness factor where, like, you never know, you might survive it.
Right.
But he's really shit the bed recently. I mean, he's been horrible lately. I mean, just
Yeah.
absolutely horrible, to the
Yeah.
point where I wash my hands of the whole thing. I literally don't care who you vote for. Do whatever the hell you want. And let's talk about real stuff, like what's happening in the streets and on the campuses, because that's actually working. That's actually working. This voting bullshit is not working. That is there to stop us from doing this other stuff that is working.
But it is really, I do empathize with, you know, Biden supporters when they say, look, you need to vote for Biden because if Trump wins, he's going to continue what Biden's doing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That, I mean, that makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
It's worse when it's red bombs. Like, it's just worse. So yes, let's continue with someone rather than have someone else start. That makes so much sense.
I'm reading Anya Parampil's new book right now about Venezuela. And let's not forget the Trump team was the team that tried to install this president that had not been elected, that 81% of Venezuelans had never heard of when they polled them, had literally never heard of. So that's what you're looking at with Trump. You know, a lot of people want to say, oh, well, you know, Trump's not in the pocket of the deep state. You cannot get any more deep state than to try to do a coup in Venezuela. How much more deep state can you get than that? I mean, now you're playing the classics.
Right, exactly.
Matt, I think I have some Assange, at least an article, I believe, in there. And shout out to Stella. I love you so much, Stella. And Claire Daly, who is just the freaking coolest person in the entire world.
Yeah.
Love her so much.
All right. U.S. effort to extradite Assange hits a roadblock as British High Court grants their appeal. Says it's the first positive court decision for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange in quite a while. I'll let you guys talk about how positive it actually is. Seems good. The High Court of Justice in London granted WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange the right to appeal his extradition after a 2-hour hearing. It was the first positive decision in this case since January. Mr. Justice Johnson and Dame Victoria Sharp explained that having carefully considered the written and oral submissions presented by both parties, they decided to give the right to appeal on 2 grounds related to all charges brought by the U.S. Department of Justice. So this means that Assange will be allowed to present some more detailed arguments as to why his extradition to face 18 criminal charges, 17 of which are Espionage Act charges, why they must be blocked, or else Assange will have his rights to freedom of expression violated, since the First Amendment does not cover him as an Australian citizen.
Right.
So he faces a maximum of 175 years in prison.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know. I don't consider myself a pessimist. I consider myself a realist. Is this good news? I'll take it as good news. But he's still in fucking Belmarsh.
Well, sure. I mean, as far as this ruling goes, this is as big a win as you could have gotten, because now he gets a new full hearing, which means he probably buys himself at least another year in terms of being extradited here. So that's excellent news. The bad news is he might not last another year because he is in deteriorating health. And so this has to be a cue to everyone to get Biden to drop the charges. There have been rumors that he is going to float a plea deal to Julian Assange. There have been, he said to that reporter very sort of dismissively, I'm considering dropping the charges. Who knows if he meant that or if he was just doing that to get rid of the guy.
Probably not. Alert.
But now, but now he does have a full other year. So the Day X hearing was basically to give him a chance at another hearing. And then what the court ruled out of the Day X hearings was that they would suspend the extradition unless the U.S. made certain guarantees about Julian's treatment should he get here. Then what happened was the U.S. submitted those guarantees, and I believe the date was May 4th. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it was May 4th, that Julian's team got to go in and argue that these guarantees were actually bullshit, i.e.,
Right.
he will be, given every First Amendment
Right.
consideration, right? And so apparently, according to this ruling, the UK court bought their argument that these US guarantees were nonsense, and that's why they granted them another full hearing. So those Day X hearings were a win, full stop right now, since they got him what looks like at least one more year. Obviously, the reality is this is a guy who's being tortured to death with 2 young kids, and he has to be home with his family. And so the charges have to be dropped. That's the ultimate prize here that we have to be after. But in terms of these past few months, massive win for Julian's team, Julian's family, and all of the activists who have been involved in this cause. And it's important to claim those victories because movements run on victories and they die on losses, right?
Sure.
Shama Sawant says that a lot, and it's one of the reasons why I am as big a fan of her as I am, because she understands the mechanics of movement building. You need to win victories, and you need to really tout those victories, because those are the sort of that is the kinetic energy on which your movement runs. And so this was a big win. This was a big win. Is victory won? Of course not. Victory is not won until he's out of that jail. But this went as well as it could have gone over these past 90 days. And not to pat myself on the back, but I had a feeling that this was possible when the court said we are suspending the extradition pending these U.S. guarantees. And I tweeted out that was great news at the time, and a lot of people gave me a little pushback. Well, it's bullshit. The U.S. are going to give the guarantees and they're going to extradite. I'm like, not necessarily. If they were going to do that, they'd have probably just not granted him any suspension at all. Right. Like the fact that they were open to hearing the United States argument and willing to let Julian's team back into the courtroom meant they had serious doubts about sending him here to the U.S. I had a feeling that was the case. And it turns out, like I said, I don't say this to toot my own horn, but I seem to have been right about that.
Well, whatever was going on in the courtroom, the first couple of days, Stella and the team were kind of demoralized by it. And they felt it was kind of a kangaroo court. But then the third day, they came out much more optimistic. They were much happier about what they heard from the judges.
Right.
So there was some sense on the team on the last day of hearings that they felt there were some good signs in the kinds of questions the judges were asking, that they might ultimately rule this way.
Right. Yeah, I really, oh my God. And then my other concern is, they were having the fucking CIA trying to plot getting rid of him in Belmarsh and shit like that. And I'm like, so it's also nerve-wracking because it's like, does this give us another chance that maybe he won't be extradited? Absolutely. But like you said, KEATON, is he going to last the full year?
Well, that's the thing. And, somebody has to pose the question to Joe Biden because, if you really want to differentiate yourself from Trump, I would love to see somebody pose to Joe Biden the very simple question: why are you siding with Trump's policy towards this case over Obama's policy towards this case? Because don't forget, Obama did not want to press charges because he was afraid of the precedent it would set in terms of journalistic protections moving forward. Right. And so Obama chose not to prosecute and Trump did. So then why can't some fucking shit lib reporter ask, why are you siding with Trump over Obama on this? That'll get him to move. Right? You really want to, you're upset that your base is walking away from you. You are literally siding with Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump over your old boss, the leader of the Democratic Party. Why? You got to apply pressure where you know it will be felt, right? And so that's, I think, the way to make the argument to him.
I mean, I was hoping someone would do that about Israel as well. Like, you're literally siding with Republicans the way you bootlick Netanyahu. Like, there are so many Republicans.
Yeah, but they don't care. I mean, they're all on board with that. They're all on the same page.
Yeah.
They're all hypocrites, man. They only want us. I just went to this dissident dialogues thing that was basically like the anti-woke free speech people. And they're all full of shit, man. Like, actually, this is something I wish I had asked the organizers. I was asking them about other things. Why not an Assange panel, man? You're doing a free speech thing.
Right.
You don't do an Assange panel. This is all of these people are full of shit. They want us arguing over nonsense. They want us focused on culture war, insanity, on both sides. And they don't want us really looking at the fact that they're not that far apart. They're not that far apart. When you look at the foreign policy, that was what struck me so much at this festival. Jake Sullivan could have written the foreign policy agenda. There was not one thing that anyone in the State Department would have a problem with. And that it's the same with the two parties. It's the same with Washington. There was if you look at the donations that everyone from Mike Johnson to Biden to Cruz to Schumer have gotten from Israel, from AIPAC, they're all bought. They're all bought and owned by Israel. And thank God for those people. You have the specter of anti-Semitism. If they didn't have it to hide behind, they'd have to invent it. That's their excuse for being that blatantly owned by another country. You could never do that with any other country. There was somebody wrote a meme that I shared that was very well done, because they really caught the cadence of the way Tony Soprano's dialogue was written. And it's one of his like rants to Carmela, the way they had written it. You change that I from Israel to Italy, and you give millions of dollars to people in Congress and they all vote for Italy. You tell me that shit would stand? Never. They would never stand for it.
Bada boom, bada bing. Never. Oh my God. That's epic. But yeah, I mean, you guys are totally right. Matt, I think I have an article dealing with that, specifically with Bill Maher, who I never cover because he's fucking egregious, but this is kind of spot on, except for the only thing they have in common. That's not spot on.
Yeah, he says the only thing Dem and GOP voters have in common is that they both secretly want their 2024 candidate to die, and suggested Biden, who is 81, walks like a toddler with a full diaper.
Accurate.
Wow.
I mean,
81 and 78.
Stop
that's
clock,
not young.
right time.
That's the thing with him, right?
Well, I don't think the Republicans want Trump to die. I think the Republicans love Trump.
Well, I think the majority probably do. I mean, his devotees are a very devoted minority in the party.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, as a percentage of Americans, I guess.
Like, here's the thing. Technically, if the DNC really were scared that Trump was going to win, which I fully believe he will, if they were really scared and really wanted to stop that, what they could do is replace Biden at the convention. They are well within the rules to do that. Will they?
There's a lot of speculation, but seems to me if they my call was if they didn't do it by the end of May, they weren't going to do it, and we're getting pretty close to the end of May.
Getting pretty close.
Strategically, you gotta build up a campaign with somebody else. They're gonna have their own staff. You gotta introduce them to the public. You gotta establish what their policies are. Are they really gonna wait until the convention to do that?
There's also the question of who else. I mean, I do think ultimately Gavin Newsom would be more formidable on the ticket than Joe Biden. However, to Russell's point, he would have to start campaigning now, because as of now, Newsom's numbers against Trump are actually worse than Biden's numbers against Trump, believe it or not. And so he would have to start now. Like the hour is getting late to make a switch.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know. I think Trump is going to win. Do you guys?
If he's running against Biden?
Yeah.
The abortion issue has had very unpredictable results in many elections that were supposed to be a red wave election. You know, Nick Cruz has made the point, don't underestimate the ability of the Republicans to fuck it up. And I don't think he's wrong about that. I mean, the smart money would be on Trump, but I don't think it's as certain as polling would suggest now, because we've seen in a few elections now that there is a massive Roe vote that doesn't necessarily show up in the polling.
Accurate, and polling showed Hillary was winning 98%, and that didn't really work out too well.
Yeah, I mean, with Trump's voters, they tend to be underpolled, so there is that in terms of that election. But people who are going to vote on the abortion issue seem to get underpolled too, because the red wave wound up being, a trickle.
Yeah, and if you look at the Electoral College map, which is a little different now than it's been over the past decade, because 2020 was a census year, and so they sort of rejiggered those numbers.
Right.
For all the Democrats bitching about how unfair the Electoral College is, they still have a very favorable position in terms of the path to 270 votes. Trump is now winning in Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. Well, I looked at the map and I crunched some numbers. He could win Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada and still lose the election if he doesn't win one of those upper Midwestern Rust Belt states. That's why they called that the blue wall. So, like, if the Democrats can win that if they can run the table, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, they can still squeak it out. Now, they're losing in Michigan pretty badly because of the Arab and Muslim vote, so they have a lot of ground to make up there. But if they win those three states, it's very difficult to beat them, even with Trump's momentum everywhere else. Don't forget, Trump is a lock in Ohio, Florida, and North Carolina. 15 years ago, if you told me one of the candidates was going to win those three states, it would be impossible to beat them. Impossible to beat them. You could not beat a candidate who won Florida, Ohio, and North Carolina. Now he can win Florida, Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada and still lose the Electoral College, because the Democrats have basically flipped Colorado and Virginia into their column, which means Trump has to flip one of the three, Michigan, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin, or else it's tough for him to win. Now, is he likely to do so at this moment? Yes, but that can change, and it all kind of hinges on that. So because it all hinges on three states that are ultimately gonna be pretty close, as much as Trump looks good in Michigan now, it's really impossible to definitively call that this far out.
Right. Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of people are probably saying, I can't vote for Biden, and then come November, they're like, oh, but I really don't want Trump, and then they back out.
I mean, Biden, you could scarcely conjure up a worse candidate, right? And that's why he's polling the way that he is. But in the end, people, they don't like the Democrats, but they do like the right to legal abortion. And that has been making a huge difference. And if the Supreme Court had not overturned Roe, there's no doubt in my mind we would have a Republican Senate and House right now. No doubt in my mind.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's not even a question.
Absolutely.
And you'd be looking at a Trump landslide this year, too.
Where are you guys? What state are you guys in?
New York.
I'm in New York, too.
He's
Russell's
upstate,
in the city. I'm up in Albany. Yep.
So you guys are blue, regardless. We go back.
Trump is doing a rally in the South Bronx this week. He's coming for New York. Or not this week, right? When is he doing a rally?
Thursday.
Yeah, Trump is doing a rally in the South Bronx
I am planning on going to see friend of show Donald Trump on Thursday.
Yeah, he's doing a rally in the Bronx.
That is good. That is going to yield some interviews, man.
Do you know where that is? Where the venue is? It's got to be outdoors,
it's
right?
it's a park out there.
It's got to be one of the big parks. Yeah. Wow, it's gonna be great.
Oh man.
Yeah, they denied my press credentials. Apparently, unless you're on their list, they have a list of acceptable outlets. You don't get press credentials.
Russell,
always
thank you for
email
applying. We've
everyone
done some
first.
research and determined you are fake news. You are not welcome at our
You're
rally.
fake. You're fake.
You're fake.
You are a loser.
You're
a lot of
fake,
people
lying
are
media.
saying that your station is failing.
We
What
talked to
you
our
do
people
is
and we've just
you
deemed you a
email
failing
ahead
loser.
of time with a MAGA hat on in a picture, and then they're like, cool.
I mean, I'm sure there will be vendors selling them there.
Oh,
Oh,
totally.
yeah, there are going to be a ton of vendors there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Ay, Dios mío. Matt, what's up next?
So you were on Al Jazeera?
Oh yeah, that was Saturday. I went to
wanna show that?
DC for we
you got
were
featured on Al
outside
Jazeera?
for
Cool.
7 hours in the pouring rain. Pouring.
Oh, you were at this one?
At the DC one on Saturday.
Oh, the DC one. Okay, this is
Yeah,
the
it
one.
splices into that. I'm not
okay,
sure
got it,
why
got it.
we
Okay.
separated it.
About 200 demonstrators gathered in Brooklyn carrying Palestinian flags, at first rallying peacefully, but as they moved into the streets, chanting loudly and some carrying torches, police moved in.
NYPD came in from a side street and started grabbing people at random. They were tackled to the ground. As they were on the ground and being placed under arrest, often by multiple officers, officers were beating them, punching them in their upper body, around their head.
Observers say the beatings continued for an extended time and many protesters were arrested. It remains unclear why police intervened in this manner. Palestine is almost free. There were also protests in Washington. Several hundred people braved the rain in the nation's capital to support Palestinians and to mark the Nakba, their historic mass displacement due to Israel's founding. On this dreary day in the U.S. capital of Washington, people are braving the rain to come out and commemorate the anniversary of the Nakba. They are Palestinian Americans and their supporters coming to the nation's capital. They're chanting Free Palestine, and they're accusing U.S. President Joe Biden of being complicit in genocide in his support of Israel's war on Gaza.
We have been protesting, we have been hitting the streets, and we have been educating the people on the Palestinian plight. We see the blank checks that keep going to the Israeli military.
Earlier in the week, the U.S. House of Representatives rebuked Biden for pausing a shipment of bombs to Israel. Demonstrators say the U.S. should stop giving military aid to Israel altogether. Heidi Jo Castro, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal rally. Actually, that was just a rally part. And then when we marched, like hundreds more came too. It was really amazing. And, you know, there was one Israel protester, one, and he decided that he wanted to go in the beginning of our march. So he was in the front row and we're like, what the fuck are you doing? So he wanted to make it look like this is my march kind of thing. And he started like shoving Palestinian elders like with his shoulders. And this one Palestinian elder grabbed, like put her like arm inside his arm and like drug him out of the march. It was fucking epic. I was like, that's right. Fuck you. Go away. Someone took his Israel flag. I don't even know what the fuck happened to it, but good. So yeah, that's all we had was one. So it was a pretty good day. It's, you know, it's so scary to see those videos though, because it's like, especially as a blind person, I go to these events by myself a lot, like a lot. So, you know, sometimes people are like, behind you, you know what I mean? And I'm like,
right.
Oh my God, like it scares the fuck out of me. So stuff like that, I'm like, I'm always kind of wondering, like, as I have a sign I put on my back that says caution, visually impaired with cane. So people like know, But
Right.
yeah, it's fucking
You
scary.
know, man, might not be a bad idea because these New York cops, when you take the leash off, I mean, you can see it.
Dude.
You can see it. None of this, we talked about this on the show last night. As a New Yorker who's been arrested a lot, none of this surprises me. This is basically they're treating people at these protests the way they treat the underclass, which
Yes.
usually is people of color, but not always. I've been thrown around by the police plenty. If they think they can get away with it, that's how they'll deal with you. And now they can get away with it with the protesters because they've been told to. They've been told
Right.
from on high, fair game. You can go after these people now.
Absolutely. I was so shocked because CNN, of all places, a viewer sent me a video clip. CNN actually did like a montage of the anti-Palestine protesters who threw like fireworks and beat the shit out of people and stuff. They did like a fucking montage of that on CNN.
Yeah, they did a big piece. That was about the UCLA protests.
Yeah.
And the violent Zionist, I would call them outside agitators more than counter protesters because they were literally funded by, Bill Ackman and Seinfeld's wife, whatever her first name is.
Yeah.
But they were certainly, I guess, counter protesters of a sort, but they were Zionist goons who came in and violently attacked those nonviolent UCLA protesters. And CNN did run a piece on that. CNN has done a few good pieces over the past 7 or 8 months on the investigative side. In terms of their commentary, dog shit. Dana Bash, Jake Tapper, horrible. But they did a good report on a Gaza field hospital that we covered. They did a good report on the West Bank. Basically going through this woman's day and what she has to deal with, running through checkpoints and things like that. So they have done a couple of good investigative pieces. But yeah, when it comes to getting their overall take on things, it's what you would pretty much expect.
Which is kind of what people go by, unfortunately. People who watch that stuff, they go way more by what Rachel Maddow says than what video footage they've seen.
Yeah, because that's prime time, right?
Yeah.
All the commentary that's prime time. That's 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night when most people are watching, and you have to wonder, like, what is the use of doing those investigative pieces if your sort of banner anchors on the network are just going to whitewash it at the end of the day anyway, right?
Right.
I mean, it's still better that it's out there that it's not because it gets shared around on social media and things like that. But that's been one of the crazy things to see is, you'll see a guy like Piers Morgan who will have this conversation. He has all these debates and he seemingly does not carry any knowledge from one into the next. He always starts off the default question, do you condemn Hamas? And then if there's any nuance in the answer, he'll just keep badgering you as if he didn't hear Norm Finkelstein give his intelligent, nuanced answer to that question, as if he didn't hear any of these guests, try to enlighten him on the topic. So, yeah, I mean, the cable news space is just awful. But if you notice, you played the Al Jazeera clip. That's the clip that we used to cover that same protest because they're the best ones. They're by far the best ones.
Question.
Even when it comes to local New York news, they are by far the best in the business.
Absolutely. Which is why they got shut down in Israel, of course.
Exactly. They're telling the truth. I never thought I would see the day. And it's partly that my politics have evolved, but it's also partly that the media has declined. I mean, to when we're preparing the show, if it's Middle East, I will very rarely use an American source.
Yeah, same, unless I'm making fun of it.
Right.
Pretty much. I think, Matt, we have one more thing. I think it's about Biden at Morehouse.
If I could just add one thing to what Russ said before we do this last piece. Nick Cruz, our friend, was co-hosting with me a couple weeks ago, and he said something really insightful. He said, if you want good information about the United States, look to like Press TV and RT, look at these foreign outlets.
Yep.
Listen to them when they talk about us. He says, don't listen to RT talk about Russia. Don't
Right.
listen to Press TV
Right.
talk about Iran. They're going to give you the state propaganda about their own country. So don't take their word for that. But when it comes to their coverage of our country, yeah, they're the best ones.
Well, it's
Yeah.
the same thing with conservative and liberal media.
Right, exactly.
Like, yeah, man, I want to know about Hunter Biden. I'm gonna go to Newsmax.
Exactly. You're gonna get the you're right. You're gonna get the real shit on the Democrat scandals on Newsmax and Fox
Right.
News. And for anyone who gives a fuck, yeah, you'll get juicy gossip about Stormy Daniels on MSNBC, but don't trust them to like critique themselves. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Anyway,
On.
sorry, Joy. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's totally valid. Yeah, and fucking BBC used to be good. NPR, like so many of us used to listen to that shit before, and now we're like, what happened?
Well, the BBC just did that outrageous. I mean, we covered this a few weeks ago, where they said, what did they say? It was about the UCLA encampments. They says police breakup, or what is it? Mass arrests after horrific acts of violence at California campus protests.
They just left out
California
the part, but it was the Zionists and the cops.
Right.
Yeah.
The headline clearly implies that it was the pro-Palestine protesters committing the acts of violence. They don't go out and say it. They don't say that because that would be a lie that they could be caught in.
Right.
But they phrase the headline, horrific acts of violence cited at pro-Palestine protests, which of course leads the reader to believe that the violence was committed by the Free Palestine side, when the reality was, of course, the exact opposite.
And most people just read the headline, to be honest. I mean,
exactly. Yeah. Right. Of course.
And you ever notice how like so many articles or news clips or anything, they're always like pro-Israel counter-protesters are always Jewish students. So it's Jewish students have been, verbally attacked or whatever. And then pro-Palestine supporters are always Hamas supporters.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So just that they use it as a pejorative. So even if it could be a glowing review. It's not, but even if it were, you're still putting that tone just by saying those things. I hope, I hate to say this because there's no like nice way to say it, but like as the older generation dies off, like MSM will become less of a thing.
Man, no,
I mean, we're seeing it now. The only reason these cable news programs survive, most people don't realize this. They assume that, well, they must be making some kind of profit. No, it's because most cable packages bundle in CNN and they get a fee for being part of that bundle, but on their own terms. Like if they ever get rid of that policy of cable bundling, or if that whole business model becomes obsolete, as it kind of rapidly is becoming.
It is.
Like who the fuck is getting a cable package anymore? I couldn't tell you the last time I had a cable package. Based on advertising revenue and having viewers in the so-called key demo, they don't have any viewers under dead. So what's going to happen to them?
Yeah, and those cable bundles are becoming obsolete. Like the rental complex that we live in, they include cable and internet in the rent, so I just get free cable with my rent. Yeah, but starting in July, they're not doing that anymore. So like, I'm not going to pay for cable once I have to pay for cable. The only thing I watch on occasion is like the Yankee game, but now the Yankees have their own app where you can pay like $20 a month to watch the Yankee games. So why would I pay $170 a month for a Spectrum cable package when the only thing I ever use it for is to watch a ball game every now and then? If I want to get access to the ball games, I could pay $20 a month to just get the ball games. Right. Yeah.
Right. For sure.
Right. Everything's gone just a la carte that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And when they tried to go a la carte that way, what happened? CNN Plus lasted a week. Right.
Yes.
Right.
I remember that.
Yeah. No one bought it. Yeah.
Well, what I don't understand is with programming like Anderson Cooper discusses his struggles as a single father. I don't
Yeah,
see how they could have missed
yeah, right, exactly.
with
True.
such
True.
compelling programs on offer.
Yes. How do
Like
you raise
who doesn't want to see a Vanderbilt
how
talk
do you
about his
raise a
struggles
child?
with single fatherhood?
How do you raise a child on a single Vanderbilt inheritance?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. It seemed like a sure hit.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Hey, dude, I digress, but did you see Hillary said she'll leave and move to Canada if Trump wins again?
No, I didn't see
Did
that.
she say that?
I didn't see
I mean,
Yeah.
is she trying to get people to turn out for him?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I know, right? Like, do you promise?
I mean,
Please?
Trump
Do you
has
promise?
to cut that into
Can
an
we
ad.
hold you to that?
Like, Trump has to put that in an ad.
Yeah.
Like, if
Yes!
he's worth
Like,
his salt politically, that has to
okay.
be an ad. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
the greatest ad for Trump
seriously.
there's ever been. Yeah.
You shouldn't have asked him to run then, dumbass.
Right.
But
Yeah.
anyway. Matt, I think we have one more clip of Biden at Morehouse. Or is it Biden? I'm not sure.
Yep, that's him. That's Morehouse.
Man, nay, as a human being, to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he looks
That's a
great.
Morehouse
He
man.
Yeah.
Man.
looks
He
terrific.
doesn't look asleep.
Yeah.
Play it again, Matt.
Looks like a
I wanna see this
melting
again.
wax figure.
I know! That's what he looks like.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck even is that? He looks like a mannequin. And why are you clapping for immediate suicide?
tiger. It's the
Yeah.
thrill of the fight.
He looks like Mickey from Rocky. Yeah.
Oh my god. I can't. Like, what?
Wow.
That is, like,
If we were in our house, we have a Crypt Keeper sound drop for such occasions.
Yeah.
oh. Oh my god. Well, thank you guys so much for coming tonight. It was a blast. I always love talking to you
course.
guys. Hopefully you
Thanks for
saw some
having us.
clips you haven't seen yet.
Yeah, we only saw like one of those, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, well, because we
awesome.
are off. We don't do a show Monday, so we did a show last night, and then we're doing a show tomorrow afternoon.
Awesome. Well, I'll be making some clips from tonight. Plug, if you have any special things coming up, where can people watch you, all that fun stuff.
We do. We have a bunch of special stuff coming up, actually. So, yeah, Russell's going to be... I think you're going to go to the Cornell rally tomorrow.
I
as
mean,
press,
they never
too.
got back to me. They probably know who we are.
Yeah, but even if they don't give you a press pass, you can probably just go hang out.
I could still show up.
You can still
Yeah.
show up. So he's going to do... He'll
And
probably
I have
cover,
a press badge.
Yeah, and you got a press badge, exactly. So I think you'll be fine. There's a Cornell rally this week in New York, a Trump rally this week in New York, and then we have where YouTube and Rumble, you can look us up, do Dissidence, ENCE at the end. I know some people get a little bit confused about the spelling, although now if you spell it wrong, it'll still show up if you put it in the YouTube search. You can find us on YouTube and Rumble. But then we're also doing in the Bronx on June 6th a fundraiser for our friend Jose Vega, who's running as an independent against one of the worst Zionists in Congress, Richie Torres. We are going to be appearing at a fundraiser for Jose along with Jimmy Dore. So that's a fundraiser for that. And I believe Jimmy's going to announce the link on Wednesday. But there is a link up. If you go to votevega.nyc, I'm pretty sure he has the link up. So if you're in the Bronx and you want to come say hello and support a good cause, we'll be there June 6th.
Is there anyone who hasn't been blocked by Richie Torres?
Yeah,
Because,
that's true.
you need to step up your fucking game.
I can probably check him out from... I have another Russell Dobular account I don't use, and because
my
Twitter's
personal.
so fucked up, I don't know how to get rid of it. But now it's actually good to have it because now I can see Richie Torres if I want to.
He followed me like 3 months ago, and I was like,
fucking kidding me, really?
How dare he?
That's
And
strange.
it lasted like 30 seconds, and then he blocked me.
He probably meant to block you and hit follow.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's what I
Yeah,
think. Because I'm like,
probably.
I trash you all the time, dude. Why the fuck was you
He was
following me?
probably trying to block you. No, I think Keaton's probably right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the worst mistakes you can make on that platform is when you try to
Oh
block
my
someone and you
God.
end up following them. The other worst mistake you can make, and I did this once, I forget what it was, but it was some horrible tweet by some horrible person that I wanted to quote tweet so I could roast it, and I hit retweet by accident. So it looked like I just unironically retweeted it, which would have sent the opposite message. And it took me forever to figure out how to undo that. But I had to rush to my laptop and do it on the computer.
I've done that and then not realized I've done it, and then
Yeah.
went to work for a couple hours and then come back to see this, like, it blowing up, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God, I meant to
It was an
quote
accident. Yeah.
you. We're online too much, guys.
I know. I know. Occupational hazard.
Yeah.
Thank you
comes
guys
with the
so much
territory.
again. Thank you all for watching. Please smash like and subscribe. All of those watching on Twitter, please do the same. If you just watch on Twitter and you don't hit like or subscribe, it does absolutely nothing for me and my show. So please do that. I'm off tomorrow for my birthday, and then Wednesday I will be back. And so thank you guys so much for watching. Much love. And thanks again, gentlemen. You are wonderful, and I love doing shows with you.
All right. Thank you.
Great pleasure. Thanks for having us. Good to see you again. And happy
You
birthday.
too. Take care.